What's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of the
Geek Buddies. Hey!
Well, we are back at it here to do our weekly show on the Outlaw Nation channel. But of course, we are sans Michael Vogel, who is now traveling for the next 2 weeks through numerous places in Europe and eventually back home to America. But Shannon McClung was back fresh off a 2-week boat trip. How are you feeling? How are things? What's going on, brother?
Yeah, so the whole idea, people were saying before we got on, like, oh, you need to take Dramamine, or you need to have these patches that go behind your ear that are supposed to kind of balance you out. On the ship, I was fine. Like, you could feel the rocking, but I was totally okay. But we were at sea 2 days before we pulled into our first port. And then when my wife and my family and we got off and we were in Juneau, Alaska, went to a restaurant, and it's like we were all feeling like, oh, this is what the hell? Like, it felt like you were still on the boat. You could still feel the waves.
Right.
And we were back at sea for another day. We stopped in Skagway, Alaska, and my wife and I actually got to, if you follow me on Instagram, you saw that we took a helicopter over to the Meade Glacier and got to hike on it.
Yeah.
Which was incredible. And even though we were going to Alaska, I severely underestimated the weather. So I knew it was going to be cold. I didn't think it was going to be that cold, but it's like, oh, you're hiking on a giant block of ice.
Yeah, exactly.
We went back through Victoria, BC, Canada, cool. Which was lovely.
Yeah.
Canadians are amazing. And we took my oldest nephew, who was 23, just wanted to preempt that, on the Canadian Ale Trail. My wife and I went on a brewery tour with my nephew. And then my wife and I then spent the weekend in Seattle to sort of decompress from all of the boat time. And while we were there, we got to try this really great restaurant called the Pink Door. If you live in Seattle, if you're visiting Seattle, it is an excellent Italian place. They hold half of their tables for walk-ins. Like, you can't get a reservation if you don't have more than like a week or two. But something we discovered, because the door is in an alley. And there's other stuff around. Like, there was a Irish pub that we went to. There was a wine bar that my family went to. As we are in line, we're about 60 people in line for these walk-in tables. We heard this sound, like a splashing sound. And then we were hit by what felt like someone taking a bucket out of like Monty Python and the Holy Grail, like a bucket, and like throwing it on us. And it was a bird with severe digestive issues that showered not just me and my wife, but the people around us as well. We got pooped on real bad, and my wife and I were both wearing black, so it really showed up. And my wife actually had, if you follow me on Instagram, my wife has dark hair, and again, bird poop tends to be, light.
Yeah.
So it was sort of she was like, promise me we're not going to tell this story. So I literally told my sister first, and now I'm telling all of you. But the food was amazing, despite the fact that we got defecated on by a real surly avian. But yeah, ever since then, I've been back on land for almost 5 days now, and I still feel the waves. So if you see me pass out of frame, I'll be fine.
Yeah, I remember going was it parasailing with you, and I know how the waves can get you, not even parasailing. And I remember I wasn't feeling all that well as well. So I do fret ever going on a cruise ship. It's just not something that I love the Love Boat growing up, watching that show, but I never have felt the inclination to get in a boat and go away for 7 days or 8 days. But who knows? Maybe that could. I know there's Comic-Con has a cruise. The WWE has a cruise apparently, and they do matches actually on the boat. Imagine that. Not only is the boat waving, right, you're actually doing a wrestling match in the middle of the boat in a ring. It must be insane to navigate that when you're doing a thing. So yeah, I don't envy you in terms of that, but I do envy the fact you got to see so many different new cities and locations you haven't been to before. Sounds like it was a blast. Were you scoping things out? Were you like, we could live here? Canada doesn't seem so bad, or was it more a matter of just appreciating the cities? What'd you think of that?
It was me appreciating. My wife is a native Angelino. But
so she's not going anywhere.
No, but as we were walking through, like walking to the place where we met up for the brewery tour, like we were actually going through a neighborhood, and one just absolutely gorgeous. But there were a lot of houses for sale, and my wife, who again native Angelino, she's like, this is pretty nice up here. Like maybe we should look into moving to our neighbors from the north. But it was gorgeous.
That's awesome.
The whole idea of a WWE cruise. I mean, I really want to see a Royal Rumble where to get the people to win, you got to throw people off the ship
onto the water
versus the ring.
I saw a TikTok video last night of some kid jumping off the top level of a cruise ship, and I think it's a fast fall, but it clearly he did not think this through, because once he jumped, there was a constant wave of arms of like, what the hell? How long is this fall? It is massive. And of course, jumping off a cruise ship is just one of the dumbest things you can do, because
horrible.
Now I don't even know if you get caught up onto the boat, or they've got to stop the boat and then throw things out to bring you back in. I don't know what it is, but that's such a crazy thing. So people get nuts on cruise ships. That's another reason I don't feel an inclination. But being around the Canadian cities, did you get an air that there's a geekiness up there as well, a nerdiness? Did you see people walking around with like shirts that had a little bit of, like you would in America in a big city, like see them wearing nerdy shirts or superhero t-shirts, anything like that? Or was it much more chill and laid back?
I mean, it's very, it's very Western. I mean, the differences between Canada and the US. I mean, I find that the people are all, a little more polite.
Right. Of course.
But in terms of geekiness, it was nothing that stood out. But again, I cannot say enough nice things about Canada. I mean, they were, again, just everyone was wonderful. Everyone on the cruise, like the entire staff of the cruise ship, everyone was great. They were actually playing, like a lot of times on the cruises, they'll have big kind of, scaled down version of Broadway shows.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So they had the Queen musical, the We Will Rock You.
Oh, right.
And my wife is a huge Queen fan. So little did we know. So we saw it by ourselves, but there is some sort of, there's some adult humor in it. And my mother, who was on the cruise, is a very conservative Southern Baptist woman. So she made it about 10 minutes into the show. And my family who went with her to the show were saying like, she just didn't really like it. But then the next night we saw they had a comedian who he was known as the King of Clean. And I think that was more an ironic title because again, we were all together for that. And she made it about 20 minutes. I mean, everyone in my family is laughing at the stuff. The comedian was fine. He was okay. Right. But some of the material was exceptionally blue. And it's like there would be a laugh, and then everyone would look to their right to see my mom's expression. And it's just absolutely stone-faced. So finally, she took my youngest nephew, and they excused themselves from the performance.
Wow, a lot of adventures, but we're glad you're back, man, and we're glad you're back on the show, and it's good to see your face. Yeah, I'm sure off the ship for sure. But yeah, this is a happy hour version of the show, and we're live, just hanging out, shooting the shit about the stuff that I posted on social media we were going to be talking about, and we'll get to that stuff as we go along. But just want to remind you all as well that the Streamlabs and Super Chats are open. It's always nice when you guys support the show. When we go live, just let us know you want us to go live more and more. And the way you can do that is sending in your Streamlabs and Super Chats as we go along. The Streamlabs address is pinned in the chats, the description of the video as well. But Oh, so let's get into it, Shane. Let's not waste any time. We already saw a fan of ours going like, can you get to the DC news already? Lord Rage, calm down. How about Lord Chill Pill? How about that one? Calm it down there, buddy. But let's get into James Bond first, man. We're going to get to the DC news stuff a little bit later on in the show. It'll be a big chunk of the show, but let's hit some of these smaller stories first. What are your thoughts on this, Shannon? Daniel Rickman, also known as Daniel RPK, said that Aaron Pierre, recently of Rebel Ridge and going to be part of and is part of Lanterns as they're ending the shoot soon, is one of several names being considered for the role of James Bond. As I mentioned, he was in Rebel Ridge, but he's also in 2021's Old, the M. Night Shyamalan horror film, and then Mufasa, the Lion King, doing a voice in that. He's also in next season's Apple TV's morning show. And of course, in Lanterns, no other names were mentioned, but he did say that they were going to start shooting this possibly later on next or early next year, even though no director is attached. So what are your thoughts on this? What an interesting kind of out of left field choice that no one has been talking about yet. Do you kind of see it? What are your thoughts on this?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it was Rebel Ridge that he was in for Netflix. Like that was my first real exposure to Aaron Pierre. Like, I've seen things that he's been in, but I never really connect like, oh, that's Aaron Pierre. So for a while, I didn't know he was English. Like I was like, oh, this is just
from London. Yeah.
You know, this is just another good young American actor. So knowing that he does have that English background, and when you see that still, that one kind of lone still that's been released of Lanterns with him and Kyle Chandler.
Oh, yeah.
100% can I see him playing a James Bond? I mean, Aaron was good. Yes, he was in Krypton. He was a supporting role in that's the sci-fi series, Krypton.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, I mean I think that totally makes sense. And when you look at his most recent body of work, and that he was the voice of Mustafa in Mufasa, the Lion King prequel. He was the voice the lead of Rebel Ridge. He's going to be Jon Stewart in Lanterns. This seems like a very natural wave that he is riding right now. Yeah. And because they do want to go, they want to find someone who's a bit younger that they can make these movies for 10, 15 years. He really seems to foot the bill. And again, if you haven't seen Rebel Ridge on Netflix, he is incredible. And I really feel like it was the reception to that that got him Lanterns. Like, I mean, as far as I know, like that was not an offer. Like he did audition for, like he was amongst other, young actors going for that role. But I have to think that there was a lot of momentum behind him because of the response to Rebel Ridge.
Yeah, I like it too. I think it's great. I mean, he commanded the screen in Rebel Ridge. He's already like muscly as hell. So what's the look you're going for with this version of James Bond? You know, people have been clamoring for Idris Elba for years. That's never going to happen, except maybe as an older Bond in some one-off or whatever. So as you said, you want to get somebody young, and it is now under Amazon or Prime Video. It's under their auspices, Amazon MGM. So they've got their own ideas of what they want to do as they approach this franchise. There's been a lot of names: Aaron Taylor Johnson, Richard Madden, Reggian Page. There's been a lot of names that have been thrown around, but Aaron Pierre was a name I hadn't heard from anybody. Yet when you look at the body of work of this guy, like, yes, you mentioned Krypton, but he also was in The Underground Railroad, which is a very intense drama, and then played Malcolm X in the Nat Geo series Genius and Jeffrey Rush did a season of that as Albert Einstein. So, they're casting actors they think who can play these roles and convey the kind of energy and status that these roles command, and he naturally has that energy. So you get a 31-year-old Bond at this. That's how old he is now, Aaron Pierre, and he radiates that kind of control of the screen. Plus, you go with a new angle that he's black. I think this is a fascinating and interesting approach to it. If this is their choice, I will be very excited to see what it's going to be. But another name has kind of popped up out of left field as well, Shannon. I don't know if you know much about this guy, but this is the gentleman I'm talking about, Patty Gibson. Good old Patty Gibson, a relatively unknown Irish actor. He's played the British super spy in the computer game that's coming out, 007 First Light, which is coming out. Actually, I don't know if you saw the trailer that dropped last week. And he's also young Dexter in the prequel series, Dexter Original Sin. He and Aaron Pierre seem to be all of a sudden out of nowhere in pole position. So do you know this guy at all? What do you think about an Irish guy playing James Bond? And does he have the look? And do you know any of his work?
Well, I think even if he is Irish, I think he will be playing the role English, like because James Bond is
of course,
traditionally an English character.
Mhm.
I haven't, and I think a redheaded Bond that would be a first. But I know when Daniel Craig was initially cast, and they put out that first still, like he still very much had that lighter blonde hair, and people lost their minds for about 10 minutes.
Yeah,
and they quickly got over it just because Daniel Craig is an incredible actor, and he brought a color to Bond that we hadn't seen before. So, Amazon now having kind of full creative control from the Broccoli's of Bond, like I know that they want to jumpstart their version of this franchise ASAP. Looking between the two guys, I think Aaron Pierre is kind of the more exciting choice. But again, I don't know Patty Gibson's work. He could come on screen and just knock everyone's socks off. But I think at the end of the day, we're going to be seeing a Bond film sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it seems like that's where we're going. If you're starting to hear about the rumors of people they're looking at, that seems to be that they're opening the door or having like hush-hush conversations or conversations on the DL through agents or managers about the possibilities. And that's the stuff that's kind of leaking through as people are talking about it. And so it seems like that's maybe the angle they're looking at. But you couldn't look at two more completely different guys in Aaron Pierre and Patty Gibson, right? Now, obviously the one white, one black, that's the very obvious one. You can throw that out, though. It's about like, well, who is really going to be the energy that they need for the story they want to tell? And the fact that they don't have a director yet, I think, is also an interesting situation, because I think that should be locked down first. Then he or she works in tandem with the production executives there and the writer to see who they want to be Bond that's going to fit the story that's being written here. So I'm real curious to see which way they're going to go. And of course, there's all the standard regulars that are involved in this as well. But these two names out of left field make both of them I'm very interested in. Just like I was interested with Josh O'Connor. I like that idea as well, because Josh would be a completely different and unusual Bond. And I don't need my James Bond to be this dashing, debonair, fuckable guy. I need him to be a badass. And I want that element to it. So, and I haven't seen Patty's work. I don't know if he's got that element to his work, but I know Aaron Pierre does. So I'm curious to see what the end result's going to be and when they start announcing. Right. Oh, good point, Jim. Pierce Brosnan was Irish. That's right. But he didn't do an Irish accent like you see.
No, but he played it English. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what direction they actually go with this version of the character. I mean, what they did with Daniel Craig at the time, there was an argument that this was being done in response to the success of the Bourne series, that they were going with this harder edged Bond, this more grounded Bond. On the back of Pierce Brosnan and the Invisible Car, and Denise Richard playing Dr. Christmas Jones. Will they continue that kind of harder edge Bond, or are they going to try to find a compromise between the two? I mean, when you look at like what Roger Moore did, Roger Moore was very much wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I mean, Timothy Dalton, I think, was probably much closer to like what Daniel Craig did, but that wasn't really what they wanted to do with the character, or rather, audiences didn't respond to that. So they found their kind of happy medium with Pierce Brosnan, who was also a little on the older side. I mean, I think Judi Dench even called him a dinosaur in GoldenEye. So it'll be interesting to see which direction they actually go with this, and that will definitely have an impact on the casting.
Yeah, 100%. So we'll see. We'll keep tabs on this and see what happens, because a lot of people are interested in the James Bond story. And is this all smoke and mirrors? Because they're going to end up anyway heading towards Aaron Taylor Johnson. We will see. But Shannon, let's move off of James Bond. You've got some trailers to talk about. What do we got here?
I do. We've got some trailers. Something you guys didn't get to do the last 2 weeks. Or if you did, you didn't do it my way. I don't know. We didn't get great internet on the ship. I couldn't watch. So the thing about being a geek buddy is you can be a geek about a lot of different things. Like you all are here mainly because of your love of Star Wars, DC, Marvel, other kind of pop culture topics. But something else that you can be a geek about is music. And our resident outlaw, Johnny Rocha, is a big music geek. Hence, the first trailer this week is the teaser for Deliver Me From Nowhere, the Bruce Springsteen biopic that is being directed by Scott Cooper, who brings a lot of pedigree. This is, in terms of cast, I mean, this is a murderer's row of talents. You have the Bear, Emmy award-winning, Golden Globe award-winning Jeremy Allen White as the boss, as Bruce Springsteen. You have Stephen Graham that I know a lot of you saw in Adolescence on Netflix playing Springsteen's father. You have David Krumholtz playing, I believe he's a record executive. You have Jeremy Strong playing John Landau, who was Springsteen's manager.
Right. So
one could make the argument, especially for someone like me who's not necessarily the biggest, musical biopic fan, that here, new year, new musician that we're getting to find out about.
Oh, right. Dylan. Yeah, that's right.
Well, thinking like last year was Dylan. We've gotten Ray Charles in the last 10, 15 years.
Freddie Mercury. Right.
Johnny Cash.
Oh, right.
So for me, this one does not necessarily it doesn't. I don't think it looks bad. It's just a subject matter that I'm not necessarily that interested in. But this does cover a very specific part of Springsteen's life. This is in 1982 when he's working on his fifth album. And I think this was, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Johnny, this is right before he made that leap to superstardom. Like he was very well known, but this is the album that really kind of propelled him into the zeitgeist. But Johnny, as the resident music geek, what was your first impression of Deliver Me From Nowhere?
I did a reaction this morning, and I was so nervous that they were going to get this wrong. And I like Scott Cooper. I really enjoy his work. We just recently saw Black Mass again just a few months ago. She's never seen it. We watched it and thoroughly enjoy it. I like him as a director. I haven't seen Pale Blue Eye, and I didn't see there was another one I didn't see, but I liked Antlers, even though not a lot of people liked it. And I've enjoyed Crazy Heart. His work is really, and Hostels is still one of my favorite Westerns for the last 20 years.
A rough one.
And so, And so what he does is he is barbed wire, broken glass, and gravel in your gut. That's the kind of approach he has to filmmaking. And what you see here is there's a lot of darkness in this trailer of Springsteen confronting his issues with his dad and the stuff with his mom. And I love that stuff is in black and white. So he has that feeling of being in the olden days before color came to his mind about his life and where he's going. And you're catching Springsteen just before he launches into superstardom with Born in the USA, because he's coming off of The River, which was an excellent, well-received album. But Nebraska is like, I remember listening to Nebraska on cassette tape back when those things were available, kids. And it was way after I'd gotten into Springsteen through Born in the USA, because that's the first thing I ever heard was Born in the USA. And so I went back later as I got older, and Nebraska is the one that's like, oh my God, just strip it on down. And most recently, a few years, 10, 15, 20 years ago, he did Ghost of Tom Joad. And I think Nebraska has a very strong connection to that, which is these songs about real life and about people's real lives and real characters in the world. And Nebraska has the opening song is a song that was based on this couple that went on a killing spree. That's what Terrence Malick's debut film Badlands was all about, with Sissy Spacek and Martin Sheen. So there's a lot of stuff going on when this album comes out. And there's Atlantic City, Johnny 99, Mansion on the Hill, what's a policeman? There's and My Father's House. Those are amazing tracks. So I like that this film is catching Springsteen at this moment, just like a little bit a Complete Unknown catching Dylan right at the beginning before he like breaks out and becomes this massive superstar after like a Rolling Stone. And so I really like it. And like I said, the cast is exceptional. And the energy of this one feels hungry and young. And I kind of like that in the approach to Springsteen. And I think Jeremy Allen White, not a spitting image of Bruce, but that was the last shots of him on stage singing Born to Run. Jesus, it's incredible. So yeah, man, I'm 100% sold. But of course, I'm much more curious, as you maybe not being the biggest Springsteen fan, but do like his music. Your thoughts on, like, would you want to jump in and see this movie? Did this trailer make you want to see the movie?
Well, I mean, just in terms of when it is being released, looking at who is involved, this is being propped up as an awards contender.
Like, yeah, it seems like coming out in October. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Anytime you have a heralded director, like Cooper. I mean, and again, Crazy Heart is a fantastic film. Like, and knowing, I think that was his first movie. I don't think he's ever recaptured what he got to with Crazy Heart, and maybe it's just that kind of musical artist entry point that maybe that's what he needs. No, I'm absolutely gonna see it. I mean, Jeremy Strong and David Krumholtz, which you see in the teaser, you see them have a brief face off.
Yeah, and
the impression that I get is that is going to be one of the kind of central conflicts of the movie. The record executive wanting one thing and the artist as represented by his management wanting another. And those two guys, I mean, you can read interviews with Jeremy Strong and you can have issues with his actoriness. But the guy turns in an incredible performance. Yeah, and 100%. Again, on the back of his smaller role in Oppenheimer, Krumholtz is just he's dynamite. Yeah. So I'm totally happy to go and see this movie, but I think I probably just don't have as much invested in it. But if it's a good story, if these are captivating performances, I will get into it. I will tell you, just from like the actor standpoint, what Jeremy Allen White is bringing to it, and whether or not this is authentic to Springsteen, I can't say. He does bring a vulnerability to the role, and he's bringing to the role something that doesn't irritate me the way Chalamet irritated me playing Dylan. but also
Dylan's
not a Dylan guy.
Yeah, Dylan's a more irritating guy than Springsteen is. That's what I would say. Dylan is purposely, in your face, and I agree with you. It's a different energy that he's bringing, obviously, to the role, and but yeah, a lot of it here is captured so well, and I wonder how much of the and it seems like we're going to explore his relationship with his father. And the thing is, people know that Bruce is a massive star, and it was Dancing in the Dark that really exploded him out into the universe. Then Born in the USA, the song after both of those songs on Born in the USA, but like, he's a very soulful singer, and even going back to the 70s, there's a lot of soulful, and I don't mean like Sam Cooke or Sam. I'm talking about like from deep in his soul, singing about people's problems, people's lives, and the people who don't make it. Like, a lot of his songs are about people that make mistakes, have flaws, don't achieve the things don't achieve their dreams, didn't get the opportunity, come from low rent places and never got the opportunities to rise above it. Like, a lot of his music in the early days kind of covers that stuff, along with the wildness and all of that. So I love that this is like an interesting time right before he explodes that they're profiling in this film. So yeah.
Well,
what's next?
Deliver Me From Nowhere comes out October 24th. That brings us to our next trailer. This is for season 2 of The Sandman. This is going to be season 2 and the last season. As I imagine a lot of our audience knows, Neil Gaiman, there are some very serious allegations out there about him right now. So most of the film and television projects that are adaptations of Gaiman's work, they are either being canceled, or this is going to be the last we're going to see of them, at least for a bit. But that first season of The Sandman was really, really impressive. And I'm getting the feeling that season 2, at least from a visual standpoint, is going to be just as impressive. You have this Again, just visually dynamic world. When you look at the comics that the series is based on, the ability to translate that to live action, it seemed like a pretty daunting task, and they've done it. I mean, Tom Sturridge as Morpheus, as Dream is outstanding, and we have Gwendolyn Christie coming back as Lucifer. I know this one it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out, because they're taking little bits from I think 4 or 5 different kind of runs, and what they were able to do with the first one was basically make a big arc. I mean, those first 4 or 5 episodes, that was how it was from the comics. But again, visually, this looks pretty stunning. I mean, we're having the rest of the Endless making their debut. We have Kirby Howell-Baptiste. I think she only goes by Kirby now. She's back as Death. I mean, this is just a visually splendid show. So, Johnny, what did you think of our first look at the second season of Sandman?
Yeah, I mean, this looked incredible. I just put up some images I was able to capture off the internet for this trailer. Look, the Neil Gaiman stuff, I did a whole video breaking down the accusations and all of that a few months ago. And I totally, kind of respect and believe the woman who is making these accusations, and she isn't the only one. He's denied them, of course, but, sometimes you have to separate the art from the artist. And it isn't like Neil Gaiman shot this thing, produced this thing, he wrote it, obviously it's based on his stuff, but like he didn't act as the lead. Like, it's a different situation, right? And so you look at it, and there's a lot of incredibly talented people, as you said, Shannon, who brought season 1 to life. So this trailer just shows you how incredible their points of views are to bring this just fascinatingly difficult story to life in a way that is visually amazing, but also emotionally stirring. And I was reading an interview with the showrunner talking about what they're going to do here. And as you said, Shannon, they're pulling from the Sandman collection, Seasons of the Mist and Brief Lives, which have different stories within them. So they're pulling out the snippets. And the cast here, they're adding Freddie Fox, who you and I both love on Slow Horses. Clive Russell is in this thing, who's been in Game of Thrones. Lawrence Afarian, who's been in The Gentleman. Anne Skelly from The Nevers and Death and Nightingales. Jack Gleason, that's right. Joffrey is going to be in this thing. India Moore. And Steve Coogan, of all people, is going to play Barnabas, the dog who is the companion of the Endless's prodigal brother. So you have quite an interesting cast coming back to join the amazing cast that you already talked about, and we saw some of them highlighted throughout this trailer, especially Esme Creed Miles, who is playing the younger sister of Dream here, and what she is going to be experiencing in all of this as Delirium. So that is all just so well highlighted. And the showrunner said that Dream is trying to move on and reconstruct his empire, but the past is coming to visit him, to punish him for his mistakes in the past and to make him face his arrogance. And we see in the trailer, I think it's his sister who says, like, all things come to an end. It was a nice story, but all things come to an end. So this is a battle that's going to be happening on multiple fronts. And I can't wait to see it, man. Honestly, I know the Neil Gaiman stuff. I totally respect and understand that. But for me, these stories are amazing. And so I can't wait to see what they do. And the trailer did not disappoint, honestly.
Well, as Netflix has been doing sort of irritatingly with some of their shows that we're excited to see, they are breaking this one up into 2 parts. So you will be getting season 2, volume 1, July 3rd, and season 2, volume 2, July 24th, when some of us will actually be at Comic-Con. So we will not be watching the show until that following week. But the first volume comes out July 3rd. And that brings us to our next trailer, one that had me on the ground. It is our second look at The Naked Gun. This is with Liam Neeson as Frank Drebin Jr., from executive producer Seth MacFarlane, director Akiva Schaffer from The Lonely Island. Man, I mean, we get our first glimpse at Pamela Anderson as the sort of female lead, potential femme fatale character. who is happy to take a chair right out of an office. There are so many great jokes in this. The man's laughter joke. Our friend Jonathan Gabay, who Vogel is traveling around Europe with right now, he actually just said man's laughter. I'm like, what does that mean? Then I watched the trailer, like, man, that is a top tier joke. There are so many great moments in this. Could it fall? Could it go right off a cliff and be terrible? Yeah, that's true. But what we're getting in terms of the trailer, I thought looked really, really funny. And I can already see some people don't agree with me in the chat. So, Johnny, what did you think of our second look at the Naked Gun?
Oh, I loved it, man. I loved it. I did a reaction as well to this one earlier this week, and I just was laughing all over this thing. Because yes, I mean, Liam Neeson is just such the perfect choice to deliver this stuff so straight. It is. I mean, him getting the coffee when it looks like he's driving the car had me in stitches. Him yanking out the the electronic vehicle chargers, and it leads to a prison break. Effing genius. Yes, man's laughter instead of manslaughter. Genius.
Must have been some joke.
And I mean, Paul Walter Hauser is really great to see him as George Kennedy's son. So that's going to be interesting, their interactions. And the idea, like just the jokes is, who's going to arrest me? Other cops? And she's, yes. CCH Pounder, she's like, yes, other cops are going to. It's like, come on. And so, and him shooting through the windshield instead of, I mean, just little things like that are genius. And I think nothing says how much people want a comedy to succeed than the fear that all the jokes are in the trailer. And I saw a lot of people commenting, oh my God, I hope all the jokes aren't just in the trailer. That means you really want this to do well because you enjoyed the jokes that were in the trailer. I mean, the whole thing with Pam Anderson scrubbing, I mean, like it is an old Austin Powers joke, but it still effing works every time you see it. I thought that was really funny. And yeah, and it's smart to have Pam Anderson. I mean, not saying that there's a comparison between her and Priscilla Presley, but having someone, you know, who has a name and coming back into prominence in the public eye, just as Priscilla did when she got cast in this series with Leslie Nielsen, I think is great to have Pam do something like this. Because people want to laugh with Pam, they want to enjoy Pam, and it makes all the sense in the world to have her a part of it. So yeah, I mean, all across the board, I thought this was a very funny trailer, and I'm hoping that the film itself is a lot of fun. And look, it might be just us, a lot of us older guys or older people rather, who enjoy the hell out of this thing, who are going to have a good time with this. Maybe the younger generation won't get it, but damn it, I'm just glad it's happening, you know, and that they're capturing the right mood, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and I think I said on the show a few weeks ago, a month ago now, that was like, that's something I do miss from the summer is that great summer comedy. Like that's when we got There's Something About Mary. That's when we got so many, like American Pie. And granted, The Naked Gun is a very different type of comedy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in the neighborhood of There's Something About Mary, but yeah, I mean that trailer, I mean the body cam footage of him cutting the line to the bathroom and him taking his cuts. I mean, that's the type of joke that, is it a little risky right now? Yeah, but I think that's what comedy has to do. It kind of has to push those boundaries. But in either case, The Naked Gun comes out August 1st.
All right, we're going to jump into the DC stuff in real quick. But real quick, I want to ask Shannon two questions. One, Shannon, this Pirates Caribbean news broke here. What are your thoughts on this? In a recent interview with Screen Rant, producer Jerry Bruckheimer, of course, is promoting his other films that are out right now, was asked about the Pirates of the Caribbean film. Will it take the franchise in a new direction? Some of the original cast are expected to return, apparently. He said, well, not all new actors. We'll have some back. I'm not going to tell you which ones. You'll have to guess. I mean, Johnny Depp just, I think yesterday or today, dressed up as Jack Sparrow again for kids in a Spanish hospital. So your thoughts on and I mean that in Spain, not that everyone spoke Spanish in the hospital. So your thoughts on this, Shannon? Do you want to see the older characters back, or do you think we've kind of gone to that well one too many times? Is this opening the door to Johnny Depp? Just want your thoughts real quick.
Well, I think Jeffrey Rush is dead after the fifth one. Right. But he also has died before.
Right.
Keira Knightley and Orlando Bloom, I don't really need to see them again. I think that the franchise is Jack Sparrow, but even by the end of the fifth one, he was kind of running out of gas. I mean, the joke had kind of been played. I do think the fifth film is a massive improvement over the fourth one. I think the fourth one is the only legitimately bad movie. Like 2 and 3, that was a lot of story they were trying to tell. And you know, they shot them back to back. I mean, there was a lot of things that could have gone wrong, and I think narratively probably did go wrong. The fifth movie to me was like Shrek Forever After. Like Shrek 3, I thought or Shrek the Third was just such an unsatisfying film that you just wanted something that was okay, and I think that's what we got. I don't know. I mean, do we want Grandpa Jack Sparrow? You know, do we want Johnny Depp throwing the wig back on? You know, I'm not sure. I mean, I haven't seen him recently in any performance that gives me the urge to be like, we got to bring him back. But I don't know how you do Pirates of the Caribbean without him, though, either.
Yeah, and Bruckheimer is one of his staunchest defenders. He's never left Johnny Depp's side through all the drama that's gone on with Amber Heard and everything that happened and all the accusations. He has defended him from the beginning. So I think this is, and you know, we're in a new world now, Shannon, where everything's being destroyed and deconstructed, and things where people were quote unquote canceled are now being given the opportunity to come back. And so I would not be surprised because this happens, because Depp has said that he would never come back to Disney. He didn't like the way they screwed him over. And he said, I wouldn't come back for $300 million. Well, I mean, I'm sure things change, wounds heal, time passes. And if he's going to be welcomed back, then maybe that's the possibility. And a few months ago, Deadline did report that there was a Johnny Depp Pirates of the Caribbean script that was being worked on, even though Disney denied it. Now I think it seems like Bruckheimer is going to talk about it out loud, and I think it is going to happen. I don't know about Orlando, but Orlando has said he wants to come back. And Keira recently said that like being in the Pirates of the Caribbean was tougher because people thought she was a bad actress. And so they would look at her in this, but go see her movie. So I don't know what her feelings are about it all, but you never know, man. It's very, very possible. So we will see. The other question I have for you is, do we need this? A Land of the Lost series is apparently being rebooted and is in early development at Netflix. Of course, this is from the original co-creators, Sid and Marty Krofft. For those who are old enough to remember, Legendary Television will produce this thing. No writer is currently attached. But I don't know. Did you watch Land of the Lost? Did you watch that terrible remake with Will Ferrell? Do we need a Land of the Lost series? Or is this the right place? Is this the right thing right now? Do people really care about this anymore?
So I never actively watched it as a kid. It's the type of thing that would be on right before the thing that I wanted to watch was coming on.
So you would catch the last few minutes or something.
Yeah. So, I mean, I saw the Slee Stacks. I saw, you know, Will and Holly. Live action shows, and you know, we're talking the early to mid 80s, and I guess this was actually in the 70s, I think.
Yes, it was. I think, yeah.
They didn't look good. I mean, even like with kid eyes, you're like, this doesn't match up to this other stuff. Right. That being said, like I did watch the remake with Will Ferrell, and yes, that is a real bad movie. Yeah. Across the board, I'm like, why you age up Will and Holly? Like, I don't remember now, but I think Netflix has a thing that they've done, and I'm including Lost in Space, of taking this kind of older show and a concept that may have come off a little silly. I think they have a potential really good show here. Like I think it might still be on the lighter side, but I think they will probably lean into the things that digital technology can do now. And you might have sort of an exciting family adventure, much the way Lost in Space was. I mean, Lost in Space on Netflix, that's a really good show. Yeah. So I could see this being very, very successful. Well, it could also go off a cliff.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's a good thing but it's a great point you make here about Netflix, because not only Lost in Space, they also did One Day at a Time, which a lot of people really enjoyed before it was unceremoniously canceled. For I think 3 seasons it was on. Good Times, they did a remake of Good Times. They recently have commissioned a pilot for a follow-up to A Different World. That's right. Kadeem Hardison and Jasmine Guy might, for Cree Summer, who I know is in Abbott Elementary, they might be all getting back the band back together to be in A Different World, a new version of it. And there's a new version of Little House on the Prairie that Netflix is working on as well. So clearly they see that there might be something here. Maybe it doesn't work theatrically. Maybe people won't go see it in large numbers, but they'll take a chance on it with their take and their twist on it at home and see these things, because they know a lot of the older folks who watched this stuff growing up are now getting old and becoming sedentary. So why not do remakes and see if it works for them and put it up on Netflix where they can watch it easily? So I think it's a smart business move, and maybe they can get it right, as you said, like they got it right in Lost in Space and One Day at a Time. So could be fun to see.
I mean, I actually have a friend who's working on Little House on the Prairie. I mean, they're going to shoot that in the middle of nowhere, Canada. But it's interesting because in terms of name value, like Land of the Lost, most younger people, they don't know that was a show. I mean, they kind of, if they found out about it, was because of the Will Ferrell movie. Right. So it's interesting to see which titles, just because they are IP, which have value. Right. I know I can see people in the chat talking about ISIS. And I never saw that. When I saw that, it was paired with Shazam, the old Billy Batson version. So yeah, it's interesting to see what things kind of hold their value and what don't. But because of the Sid and Marty Krofft of it, like that still does have, especially with people that are probably a little older than John and I, there's still a very deep affection for their shows. So it'll be interesting to see what direction they actually choose to go with.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of them, right? I mean, because there's something about this franchise that people keep coming back to, right? They released it in 1974. It didn't last that long, but it got a cult following, so they started putting it in syndication in the mid 1980s. So many people loved it that they did 2 seasons of the show in 1991. They brought it back to it, and then 2009 was the Will Ferrell movie. So clearly, this is a property or a franchise that studio executives or studios themselves keep coming back to try to do something, because they sense there's some kind of magic here. So we'll see what approach they take and what angle they go in. And an ISIS remake. I mean, now you're blowing the dust off my memories big time. And let me say something. As a kid, you didn't care if it was a male or a female lead. You just wanted to enjoy the show. Remember Electra Woman and Dinah Girl? That's what I grew up on watching, right? ISIS, I remember. Wonder Woman, I remember. Those are those things you remember watching as a kid. So I love that idea that they're, kind of younger kids, they don't care about all this YouTube. Oh, you're a woman lead. What are you talking? It's like, who cares? We just want to enjoy ourselves when we're kids and watch good shows. So hopefully this is one that they nail and get right, because clearly there's a generational desire for this property to do well. Buck Rogers. I would love to see it. I mean, Aaron, please, are you kidding? Aaron, as Bruce said, Aaron Gray was the truth. Damn right she was the truth. Goodness gracious. I don't know about HR Puff and stuff. But
I had Buck Rogers toys. I can't remember the little robot that was with Buck Rogers. But I also remember watching Silver Spoons with Aaron Gray and being like, "Who is that?" It's like, let me show you Buck Rogers.
Jesus Marumba. Fantastic says, show my age, Penelope Pitstop. Yes, I remember Penelope Pitstop and Snidely. That's right. Anyway. All right. Stop. All right, let's get into DC. Let's talk about DC. By the way, we got 300 of you watching us live. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. We have a limited amount of time, about 40 minutes left in the show. Please remember to send in your Streamlabs and Super Chats, and we'll answer them at the end of the show quickly. So send them in as we go along here into the next into the final section of the show here. So a lot happened this week, Shannon, with DC. We had James Gunn delivering his interview to Rolling Stone, talking a lot about what's going on with DC. I found the interview to be very interesting in his approach to Superman. I liked a lot of what he said about his approach to Superman and how he wanted to create Superman through crypto being the inspiration. And I think David S. Goyer came out and said how he had never thought to use crypto as the entry point to Superman. He's really excited to see that happening. But he also talked about Batman and how right now DC has the Batman problem. That's the biggest thing he's trying to navigate now with two different Batman, possibly two different Batman movies, rather possibly. He talked about what a Wonder Woman movie or a Wonder Woman situation happening here. And that's Adria Arjona, who a lot of people want to see as Wonder Woman. I mean, there's conversation. He said that it's being written. The Wonder Woman writer is writing it. There's a Batman writer, but he wouldn't reveal who the Batman writer is. And then Rachel Brosnahan has been all over the place this week, talking on shows and talking about her points of views, defending superhero movies. And then there was a new clip with Lois and Clark from the Superman movie, going a little longer version of their interview, going back and forth about it with a very aggressive Clark Kent going back and forth with, or a passionate, shall we say, a passionate Clark Kent going back and forth with Lois about stuff. So what stood out to you this week about the DC stuff, about the conversations? What about the James Gunn's comments about DC? What stood out to you, brother?
I thought it was a really good interview. I thought it was a really, really good interview. And the hammering home that he is there on the creative side and Peter Safran is the business guy. Like obviously, I think Peter Safran will have creative thoughts because most good producers do, but ultimately his job is the business side. And it is funny, like the photo shoot that goes along, like for our podcast listeners, John put up some of the pics from the article, and he looks very debonair. Like, right. It's almost he almost looks a little Lex Luthor-y in my opinion.
He did say in the interview that he connects with the Lex character more than Superman. So yeah.
I really like what he had to say. I mean, I think I think some of the headlines that get put out, not with I don't think it was Rolling Stone's headline, but the whole idea of like, you don't want everyone to root for you. That headline comes off, in a vacuum, very antagonistic. But I think when you actually get the context of what he is saying and get the context of the actual conversation, it's kind of like, okay, I get where you're coming from with that. Again, like crypto as a concept, it seems like it would be challenging. I mean, I know when that was first announced, it was like James Gunn has bought enough goodwill with his recent filmography, and a lot of that is thanks to the successful implementation of Rocket and Groot. That is kind of like, okay, like, all right, if you want to use crypto, I guess you're using a dog and a cape. But then watching the reading the article and then watching the trailers, I'm like, I think crypto might work. Now, again, we will find out when we actually see the film on July 11th, because maybe it's not going to work. It might not. He may have swung for the fences and not connected as solidly as we wanted him to. But overall, I mean, the whole idea, him talking about kind of the death of the movie industry, that release dates are put before scripts, and that's sort of a counterproductive way to make a film. Now, in the age that we live in, where studios are staking out dates years ahead of time, it's sort of a problem that you have to learn to live with. He refers to the script that he killed, or rather the movie that he killed, because the script wasn't ready. And it sure makes me think that was Sergeant Rock.
Yeah. Some people said The Authority, but I think it feels like Sergeant Rock. Yeah. I
mean, Sergeant Rock is the one that was just delayed indefinitely.
And cast. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do like what he's saying there. I mean, whether or not the powers that be, because even though he is the head of DC Studios is still a subsidiary of Warner Brothers, which is a subsidiary of, something else. The whole idea that this is what he wants to do, like, that's great. Whether or not his bosses are going to go along with that, we'll see. I like what he said about Marvel. I mean, it's very easy for someone whose time with a certain company, like the sun has set. It's very easy for someone to be like, yeah, I wasn't totally happy there because X, Y, and Z. He doesn't bring up anything about how he was, or if he does, it's not in like they did me wrong. He talks about the what's been going on at Marvel, kind of the shakiness of it. He's like, that has nothing to do with Marvel. That has to do with the corporate side, that they are demanding too much output. And it's like they've killed it because they ask too much of people. Like one too many squeezes from that orange, and that they may have run dry for a little bit. Yeah. So I was really happy with that article. And I see some people talking about, do you think Gunn's a little narcissistic? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, most people, I don't want to say at that level, but I feel like a lot of storytellers, that they can come off that way. Yeah. Do I know James Gunn personally? No. I know folks that know him, and the reactions are very greatly. But that sort of certainty that some people have, that yes, that can come off a little narcissistic. Over to the Brosnahan point.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Rachel Brosnahan's quotes here, how like she is saying, why do you take a Superman movie if you're why do you take a superhero movie if you're going to turn around and crap on it? So what did you think of her comments there, Masha?
I mean, good for her. Also, this is her first at bat with a superhero film.
Good.
So
points. Yes,
she talks about the and I don't even think she's relegating it to superhero films, but like, why take this big thing if you're then going to bash on it? Well, her leading resume, it's The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Right. And she was outstanding, and she was fantastic. Now,
it's all TV stuff or streaming stuff. You're right. You're right about that. Yeah.
Well, and then I think when you've had more time in that sort of corporate studio machine, you might have some different feelings. I love what she's saying on the surface. I think the article is a little unfair because they bring up Chris Hemsworth talking about Love and Thunder, and I think that is an unfair example to use. Someone kind of slagging their movie off. And it's like, I don't think he was slagging the movie off. I think he's taking responsibility. We tried a thing, and after we were done, we see it didn't work.
Right.
And he's just like,
far in one direction. Yeah.
He's like, I was having too much fun. We got too silly. And the result was a film that, by and large, it was financially successful, but it was not critically successful. I think the example that she used with Dakota Johnson, I think that's very, very apt.
Yeah.
But also from Dakota Johnson's point of view, she may have signed up for one thing and it became another. That's kind of the reality of being the lead of a film when you are a star, but you are not a star. Like, she's not at the level that she'd be like, I don't agree with this, we should change it. Like, she's not at that level.
Right.
So the whole idea that she was kind of throwing people under the bus, it's kind of like, I mean, I get why you would do that. Like, you are now attached to a huge, huge bomb. And you are trying to save as much face as you can right now. But at the same time, like no one watched that movie and been like, oh, if only they'd given Dakota a little more freedom, she really could have turned something. No, like nobody had that feeling. Like a line that she had from the trailer turned into a running joke for months. And again, I don't think anyone has watched something that Dakota Johnson has been in and be like, boy, Madam Web really did her wrong.
That's fair. That's fair.
But then over to the Batman side, I mean, you can tell he's frustrated. Like,
he says Batman's my biggest issue in all of DC right now. The writer of Batman and I are trying to get it right because he's incredibly important to DC. But Wonder Woman and Batman are my two biggest priorities right now. And he says you can't just shoot a Batman movie. You have to create a reason for Batman to exist in order to make the movie. So he's trying to crack that with a quote unquote writer, which may be James Gunn. But I don't know when you look at this situation. So Shannon, what are your thoughts on this? Because he says every single Batman story has been told. People love him because he's interesting, but having so much of him out there can also make him boring. So how do you create that property that's fun to watch? And he says, but not a campy Batman. I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in funny campy Batman. So we're dealing with that. that certainly seems like all, because Brave and the Bold has some campy moments. So it seems to me like, and he even said it's called Brave and the Bold for now. I'm not saying it is called Brave and the Bold for the future, because they changed Superman Legacy to Superman. And in this interview, he announced that he's changing Woman of Tomorrow to Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow to Supergirl. So, as you said, it seems like everything is kind of, it's a problem for James right now when it comes to Batman. He can't seem to crack this thing.
Well, I think it's less that he hasn't been able to crack it, and they're trying to figure out, can we do two Batmans? I think that quote that you had said about, like, if there's too much of him, it's going to be boring. And that speaks directly to the issue of Matt Reeves, the Batman universe, and James Gunn wanting Batman for his universe.
Right.
So again, we've talked about it before, like I think a lot of decisions will be made post Superman.
Yeah.
If Superman comes out and is a huge, huge hit. Now, to the Brave and the Bold. So the Brave and the Bold animated series, that was very, very silly. That was
Dietrich Bader,
Adam West level silly. But I actually think it was a pretty good show. I mean, it is a different type of Batman. It is made for a younger audience. When they found out that because I think there were 3 seasons. I think when they found out that the end was in sight.
Right.
They did do some more, not serious, thematically serious episodes. Like you had him go back and kind of, they touched on the Waynes and the murder. But the original Brave and the Bold, that's an old DC title. And it wasn't just a Batman title. It was taking 2 heroes and pairing them up. So I think the whole idea of him saying, I don't want to do a silly Batman. I think he wants to keep Batman the way he is traditionally portrayed, recently, like last 30 years, 40 years. He wants that serious Batman. Like he's not going Joel Schumacher. Like he's not going Adam West. Like it's going to be a serious Batman. But in the world that he is constructing, it is a larger than life world. It is a world where a giant monster can walk down the street. It's where you have aliens actively on Earth. So my hope more is that we are going to get more like an Arkham Asylum Batman, that you are going to have Batman as we know him and as we want him, but in a world that is, to this point, hasn't been greatly touched on in film, where we do get some of those bigger bad guys, like where we do get a Mr. Freeze, we do get a Poison Ivy, we do get a Clayface, where you can lean into the broader aspects of those characters, but not bring the Schumacherness, like what the comics have done for decades.
Well, he said we're in an alternate reality where superheroes have existed for 300 years in his world of Superman, right? So that allows him to go in any kind of direction he wants with that Batman. But I think what you're so well pointing out, Shannon, is he may not want a campy Batman, and that's great because you want a more serious Batman. But we've already got a more serious Batman. And so that's where the situation is banging into themselves. And again, to be fair to James, like James didn't greenlight the Batman. They did the Batman not knowing that they were going to make this decision about James Gunn and Peter Safran. So it's kind of like a general manager inheriting a coach he didn't hire to be the head coach of the team. It's not who I would necessarily go with, or a player. It's not who I would have drafted, but I have to kind of figure out how to make it work for now, or, play the politics and get this guy out of here so that I can, or woman out of here, with female sports blowing up as well. Because I want to put my spin on it. Right. And I think the success of Matt Reeves, his universe, I think, is biting James a little bit in the ass. And I know they're both co-producing Clayface. And, we had the announcement this week that they've got the actor to play Clayface, and he very well, I think a little bit of smart PR, put Matt Reeves' name in the tweet announcing that it was going to be announcing the actor for Clayface. So there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. I think no matter how much he protests that there isn't, and that the film is still happening, and that Matt Reeves is still doing it, and people are being quote unquote mean. The truth is that they're not being mean. Things are going on, and we know there's smoke and there might be fire back here, and you all are trying to politically figure out what to do in this situation. Because I'm sure James, who you have said, from people has a healthy ego, and he wants to do his Batman, and he does not want his Batman possibly coming up short compared to Matt Reeves's Batman, because that could insult the overall boss. And so I know you all want to live in a fantasy land where everybody holds hands and kumbayas around the creative tree, but that's not how it works. In order to succeed in Hollywood, you have to have a strong ego, whether it's good or bad. You have to have a strong ego. And I think being in charge of it, Feige's not out here letting someone else do a different Black Panther than the Black Panther he wants to see that works in his MCU. That's just not how it works. So I think that's, at the end of the day, they're trying to figure out the best politically expedient way to do this without causing an absolute nuclear bomb to go off in the fandom. Am I misstating that or being over dramatic about it, Jim?
I mean, I think it's less it going off in the fandom. It's more diluting the product.
Oh, okay. Fair point.
And I think that's ultimately diluting the product financially and diluting the product creatively.
Right.
Because, as you said, we have a very serious Batman
already
in Robert Pattinson, and he doesn't want to do. We don't want a campy Batman. Like you want a Dark Knight. You want a world's greatest detective who is very serious minded. Like we don't want the live action Batman, the Brave and the Bold. We want kind of Kevin Conroy. Like I think that's kind of who he would model it after, because the DC universe was done so well in the Batman the Animated Series and Justice League Unlimited. But it's kind of like, is it enough for it to be a different actor in a different world when you kind of have the same character? Like, is that going to tap the audience out? And for I think for people like us, for people that are listening and watching right now, no, we're going to go see it. Of course, 100%. We're going to go see it multiple times, even if we don't like it. But the movie going public, by and large, that's who you have to worry about,
and that's who you can confuse if you have two different Batman, right? And that's we have multiple Jokers, but they're not coming out at the same time, and that would be the situation that they're confronting here going forward. Oh, well, before we leave the DC, we got to talk about this, Shannon. Your thoughts on this? It's the 20th anniversary of Batman Begins. I've seen over the last 20 years a lot of people in the public social media space clamoring for more respect for Batman Begins, claiming that it is actually the greatest Batman film ever made, better than Dark Knight. And but it's interesting to look back on it. I watched a little bit of it today just to prepare for the conversation, and I still thoroughly enjoy that movie. And I enjoy Christian Bale. I enjoy Nolan, like kind of finding his feet a little bit in a superhero movie. Katie Holmes less so, but Cillian Murphy is damn good in the movie, and Liam Neeson, who we're about to see wearing a Catholic schoolgirl uniform in Naked Gun, is like the really good villain in this. Michael Caine, so much to enjoy. What are your thoughts looking back on this film now, 2 decades later? How do you think it holds up?
I mean, it's been a while since I've seen it.
Yeah.
But that movie is outstanding. I mean, you could make the argument the movie levels out when he becomes Batman, because the journey to him becoming Batman, Bruce Wayne, the character, is the one that we're fascinated with.
Yeah. 100%.
Because they've covered it in the comics, kind of like the training that he did, but for a live action audience, getting to see what made him put on the cape and the cowl. It's fantastic. I mean, a lot of people will argue that Batman Begins, as you already said, is the better Batman movie than The Dark Knight. That The Dark Knight is an incredible film, but it's much more a crime caper versus a Batman movie. Now, I still like The Dark Knight better because you have the whirlwind of a performance from Heath Ledger.
Yeah.
And even with Heath Ledger's, again, incredible performance, you don't lose Bruce Wayne in that movie. Like Bruce Wayne is still very much a presence. But what Batman Begins did so well is it got the audience invested in Bruce Wayne, not in a mask.
Yeah.
That when we saw Batman, we were seeing Batman, but really we were seeing Bruce Wayne. Yeah. And watching that journey that he went on and watching how integral, again, that live action audiences that, who didn't read comic books, you got to see how integral Alfred actually is to this dynamic. It introduced live action audiences to Lucius Fox to find out that it is not one guy in a cave. Like, he has a team. And what they did with Lucius Fox especially was outstanding. Getting to see, like, he knows, but Lucius Fox needs plausible deniability. Right. Like, for this version, like, I don't want to know what you're doing. I'm just going to say all this stuff is yours. Like, it's the type of thing that Nolan does that Nolan doesn't really get credit for. Is Nolan's pretty funny.
Yes.
But the comedy is delivered so subtly and so straight that if you're not paying attention, it's not the type of movie you want to watch with your phone. I mean, and granted, we all weren't on our phones as much as we are now 20 years ago. Right. But the amount of jokes in it, like, it's great. And fully agreed about Cillian Murphy. I mean, I'm so glad he didn't get to become Batman. Because his Jonathan Crane is outstanding and truly, truly terrifying. And it has cleared the path for him to be a different character later in his career. But Batman Begins is a great movie. I just remember when the teaser poster came out, which is that silhouette of Batman on top of a building. He's got his head dropped. Yeah. And for comic book readers, they saw that and were like, they understand it. Because that's not what you got. I mean, as much as people do like the Tim Burton films, they never got to that point that Batman, Bruce Wayne, is a sad freaking guy. Yeah. And that's what we saw in that poster.
There's a cost for what he does. And I agree with you, Shannon. We see it really underscored in the first movie, in Batman Begins, right? With the loss of his relationship with Rachel, the desire to seek this vengeance in essence means he will be a lonely outsider for a majority of his life. And he has to put on airs to act like this arrogant rich guy and all this kind of stuff in order to keep people off the scent of who he is and what he's really doing. So that's the irony, is that when he wears the mask, that's who he is. When he takes the mask off, that's the real costume that he's putting on for the world. And so I think that's what's fascinating when you watch the movie as well. And Tom Wilkinson, I think, is great as it was a Falcone in the movie, and what he does. Oh, it was genius to see what he creates. There's, again, as I said earlier, there's a hunger in that first movie, Batman Begins, that is fun to see. And having lived through the 1989's Batman like you did, Shannon, you remember when Tim Burton's version was like, people were like, this is amazing, it's so dark, it's so different. And then you live through Nolan's version of it, and you're like, wow, this is so interesting. And now we live through a third iteration that captured the spirit correctly to match what's going on in our society and our tastes in our society. And Matt Reeves is the Batman. So there's so much to enjoy from the first installment in a lot of these attempts to do Batman trilogies or Batman series of films that I think should be lauded much more loudly, and I think Batman Begins absolutely fits in that category for sure. And
do you think?
And the score.
The Hans Zimmer score, especially for that first film, is outstanding. Like all of the films, all three films, and like I'm not the biggest fan of The Dark Knight Rises. But all three of those films have incredible scores. But the themes that they establish in that first one is outstanding. Do you think? I know we're running short on time, and we got to answer some questions. Yeah. But do you think the powers that be at Warner Brothers, and granted, the regime has changed, do you think they look and like, man, we should not have done this Matt Reeves Batman movie.
Oh, you mean in retrospect because of the problems that they're in?
Yeah.
No, because that means we would have to surrender all that profit. And these are how executives think. It's like, well, success is what matters, and we'll figure things out after the success to try to make it work. But I mean, yeah, maybe there's a fleeting thought. And look, Gunn says it in the interview. We've thought about all possibilities, and we have talked about Pattinson being our Batman in the DCU. So they've explored all the possibilities that this success has brought, all the difficulties rather this success has brought them. But this is the game. If you want to be successful, sometimes you have to kind of think on your feet when certain things become more successful, and you pivot, make decisions in another direction because of circumstances, right? I mean, this was a situation. I don't think they thought the whole thing through, is what I think. And I think it isn't that they regret making the Batman. I think it's they regret that when they brought James Gunn on, they weren't very clear that Robert Pattinson was their Batman, so that James Gunn was inheriting that Batman to fit into his DCU. That is the situation that I think they maybe regret, is that they didn't have James Gunn, once they hire him, say, absolutely, this is my Batman. We're going with our Batman. This is the guy. When he came out and says, well, we'll do him Brave and the Bold. That's when the problem started, is James wanted to do his Batman when an already successful Batman was there. I'm not blaming James. I'm just saying that's where I think the problem is.
Batman can't exist in the trailers we've seen for Superman. Like that world, those two do not, they don't mix.
Metropolis and Gotham were never meant to be the same energy. So I hear you.
It's less a vibe of the city. It's more the fact that you have a giant monster,
a kaiju
walking down Main Street.
That's a good point. It's a kaiju, right? Superheroes have not been around for 300 years, and Matt Reeves is the Batman. That's 100% the truth. That's 100% the truth. So whatever my arguments are that Metropolis and Gotham can coexist, because we do that in the comics all the time. I don't read a Batman comic book looking for a Superman story, or vice versa. But the idea here is that the way James Gunn has constructed this version of the DC universe, it is very hard to believe that he can weave Robert Pattinson's Batman in. And I still think that they're finding a way to kill the Batman Part 2 without causing too much of a social media backlash, which I think is impossible. No matter what they do, even if Matt Reeves comes out and finally reveals what's been going on behind the scenes for him and his world, and why the Batman Part 2 has been taking so long, it is not because Matt can't crack the fucking movie. That's nonsense. And James Gunn floating that, I think, is a little ridiculous. It's because there's stuff going on behind the scenes, and they don't want to admit it. They don't want to say it. But they may pay Matt Reeves out to say things like, well, I don't think I can continue doing this. There's stuff going on for me personally that I need to handle and focus on, so I can't continue down the road. And James and DC and WB can be like, well, we don't see the logic in going forward with this if we can't have Matt Reeves be our director.
This was Matt's world.
Matt's vision, right? Matt's world, exactly. And I don't think you pull Colin Farrell from the Penguin and put him in Sergeant Rock if you think he's going to continue being the Penguin and you're going to go forward that Matt Reeves universe. I just don't think that's a logical decision. That, to me, told me multitudes about how they look at Matt Reeves's universe, All right. Should we get to the questions? Should we jump into it? Because we're running out of time here. So someone asked where guy with a brain, Vogel, is out for the next 2 weeks. He's traveling in Europe. So we will be holding down the fort and possibly bringing on some guests to sit in for Mikey as well. But let's get to the questions from y'all. I am 2 for Cams. It sounds awesome, Shannon. I love the PNW. What's this cruise called? Did you have any stops in Vancouver or just Victoria, British Columbia?
So yeah, this one, I've been to Vancouver. I went to Vancouver for my 40th birthday. Absolutely lovely city. The cruise, it was Royal Caribbean. It's like one of the many cruises that is out there. But this trip was just in Victoria, and we were only there with the stops. You're there less than 12 hours. You kind of have to get in and get out. Like do your sightseeing and get back on the ship. Otherwise, you'll be one of those videos where you see people running after a cruise ship on the dock, and that ship ain't stopping.
That's a great point. Julius wants to know favorite Queen song. Shannon, what is your wife's favorite Queen song and yours?
So I saw this and I texted her. And here's what she said.
Okay.
Maybe You and I, or Tie Your Mother Down.
Oh, I don't even know those songs.
Me neither. I know Radio Gaga and Bohemian Rhapsody. And We Will Rock You.
We Will Rock You, of course. These Are the Days is probably my favorite one because it's so reflective, and I think it's a very sweet song. And I kind of love that song. As I've
heard that title before.
Yeah.
And also I see Guy with a Brain, Under Pressure. You mean Ice Ice Baby?
And is that a Queen song with David? But because David Bowie's, I feel like straight Queen song. And I loved Another One Bites the Dust. That is still on my workout mix. I love that fucking song. Julius Wyatt just watched Oppenheimer, and that movie effing rules. Well, thanks for catching up, Julius. I don't get why Shannon and Michael don't like it. Deliver Me from Nowhere looks cool to me. You don't like Oppenheimer, Shannon? I didn't know that.
No, I liked Oppenheimer. I think there's a lot I think there's some in Oppenheimer that you didn't need.
Okay.
And that becomes very apparent on a rewatch. I thought the whole and again, like maybe Julius Wyatt is catching things that I did not catch. But that Florence Pugh storyline, I'm like, you don't need this. Like this, if anything, I feel like this slows the movie down. And Emily Blunt, like that is a great speech that she gives at the end. But I was like, is this an Academy Award winning performance? I'm like, I guess like Judi Dench won it for Shakespeare in Love for being in the movie 10 minutes. But I do like Oppenheimer. But I don't think once the test happens, with the exception of when he goes into that auditorium and he sees that moment, I feel like the movie is not as strong as the beginning.
Gotcha. Fredtastic 314 says jokes in the trailer can ruin a movie. It's the reason I say BVS fell short while Aquaman made a billion. Redheads, gotta love them. Crushed. While Is She With You? I thought she was with you. Didn't.
Right, but I think this is in reference to The Naked Gun. I mean, when you got a comedy.
Yeah, those are two different movies. Yeah, BVS and Aquaman. Aquaman was meant to be tongue-in-cheek from the beginning, not BVS. Yeah.
And also, if your trailer is for a comedy, you do have to put jokes in it. I think the hope is that we're not getting all the best jokes, which Mel Brooks is very guilty of this in that the best jokes were in the trailer. I mean, Dracula Dead and Loving It, thinking of Leslie Nielsen. Dracula Dead and Loving It, that is a bad movie. And the good jokes were definitely in the marketing.
Some of you defend Robin Hood Men in Tights. I don't get it, but all right, that's fine because I know that was not a good movie either. Played Out says for the cause. Thank you, Played Out. Very kind of you. Sean says just sending love to my favorite duo today. Thank you, Sean. And Paul H77 was a missing Michael. I love early young Batman stories. Yeah, I hear you. Well, he'll be back in a couple of weeks. We will do our best to soldier on without him. Go ahead, Mike.
And if you follow him on social media, you will not only get to see his adventures, you will get to see our friend Jonathan Gabay, who we talk about on the trailer, who we talk about on the show because they are traveling together. I think they are in Prague right now, and they are heading to France pretty soon.
And my favorite caption of his, I love it. See if we're still following each other in 19 hours on social media because we're spending so much time together.
Was it 19 hours or 19 days?
I thought it was 19 hours. Maybe it's 19 days. I read hours. Maybe it was my own mind reading hours. Probably 19 days. All right, then real quick, Fredtastic 314 says, Alive Geek Buddies is right on time. Welcome back, Shannon. I would like to see Amazon MGM do the Bond universe as Her Majesty's Secret Service with a variety of 00 agents, either as a series or multiple movies. Well, Shannon, I got to think that Prime or Amazon MGM is absolutely looking at doing a James Bond series about something. So I wouldn't be surprised.
I think
they are looking very singular. Go ahead, yeah.
I think they're looking. They are looking at series within the Bond universe, not necessarily a James Bond. I think James Bond will always be a movie character.
Yes, a theatrical. Yeah.
But in terms of like following other 00 agents or
it'd be interesting.
Or a 00 Academy. I imagine everything is on the table right now in terms of that property.
You could do a series called House of M, and I know that's a Marvel thing you steal, but M would be the one who is training and monitoring the different 00s as they go on their different missions. Absolutely, you could do that. That could be a lot of fun to see, or a Moneypenny series, which I think would be super cool to see. Yeah, go ahead. Shannon.
Someone in the chat actually brought up the character of M and talked about how Idris Elba would be a great M, and I'm like, man, that would be cool.
I would love
that. Cool.
Yeah,
I think the only caution, and again, corporations have a tendency to do this. A lot of folks will argue that is what Disney has done to Star Wars and to a lesser extent Marvel, but also to Marvel, is again squeezing all the juice out. And Bond has always had a lead in that it is James Bond. And how far can you stretch that before the audience checks out?
Yeah, it's a good point. Our last one here, I think. Oh, no. Two more. John Rocha drinking game. Battle of the Toms, Cruise versus Hanks. Barring franchises, sequels, and award wins, who has the better catalog over their career?
I feel like this is something you and Steve should talk about.
Yeah, I know. That could be fun to battle back and forth over that one.
They're very different.
Yeah.
They're very different. Tom Cruise films scratch a certain itch.
Yeah.
Whereas Tom Hanks films scratch a different itch. I mean, Tom Hanks, I wouldn't call Road to Perdition an action movie, but I mean, Tom Hanks did kind of dip his toe in the villain pool, and then he did it later with a Man Called Otto.
So good, that film. I loved it.
Where it's not that he wasn't successful at it. Like they were both good films, but I don't think anyone wants to see Tom Hanks as an antagonist.
Yeah.
Whereas Tom Cruise in Collateral was an incredible bad guy.
Yeah.
And I think there's a universe where he leaned into that a little bit more. I mean, I guess you could also argue Les Grossman is a bit of a villain.
Right.
But yeah, I think on both sides, I would love to see them both stretch their legs out a little bit more. I'd love to see Tom Cruise not hang on a plane. And
so with Brad Pitt. He said, I'd love to work with Tom again, but I ain't hanging off no damn plane.
But Hanks, Hanks was kind of the bad guy in Elvis. That's true. That is true.
Colonel Tom. Right.
I know Tom Hanks, when they were talking about Lex Luthor's, like there was sort of that, like, what if Tom Hanks is Lex Luthor? I'm like,
yeah,
not for this, but that's interesting.
I think Hanks has the more respectable catalog, but Cruise has the more enjoyable catalog. I guess that's how I would make the delineation. Because as you said, Shannon, they're two completely different actors. And so for me, I enjoy Top Gun Maverick, the Mission Impossible movies. I enjoy those films. It's not that I don't enjoy Tom Hanks films, but I don't go to Tom Hanks films for Tom Cruise, right? I go to Tom Hanks films to enjoy them in a different way. And so I would say that there's more prestige to Tom Hanks's resume versus Cruise's resume. But then again, I mean, they're about to give Tom Cruise an honorary Oscar at the next ceremony. They're lobbying to make that happen. So it'll be interesting.
I mean, you give an honorary Oscar when they're not going to win one.
When they don't think they're going to win it. Yeah, exactly. Ask Peter O'Toole about that. Shannon's dad jokes. That's great. Seeing that we won't get a Batman film in this decade, do you think DC should go the way of making Batman the Hulk of their universe? Sprinkle him in here and there, letting Reeves get his sequel done, and let time pass before he gets his own movie. Do you want people to kill each other in the streets? There is no way DC would be like, oh, we're just going to cameo Batman in separate spots here throughout, and then we'll build up to a movie 5 to 8 years down the road. No effing way. And I don't know any actor who would take the mantle of Batman on with the possibility of doing a film 5 years down the road and go in and appear in little. It would be such a disrespectful thing to do to a Batman. What do you think, Shannon? Am I wrong? Where do you think there's a possibility in this?
No, I don't. I think I think comparing it's not that's kind of an apples to oranges comparison, because Hulk's 2 solo films made money, but they did not make enough money to justify making a sequel. Whereas Batman, even Batman and Robin, I don't think it was a bomb. Like, it didn't make what they wanted it to make, but I think it made enough to hold on. Well, no, maybe it did bomb. I'm not sure. There was a lot of vodka in this, and I haven't drank in a few days.
It is happy hour. It is happy hour.
But no, I think with a character that has such a proven box office track record as Batman, you're not. I think that is a great idea to sprinkle Batman in, and I don't think they would ever do it, because there's so much guaranteed money on the table with a Batman movie.
Yeah, fair point. Paul Hitchcock, are you all ripping off The Ringer? What is the? I don't even watch The Ringer. What does The Ringer do?
The Ringer.
How would we rip off The Ringer?
Is that the Johnny Knoxville movie?
No. He's talking about. I think he's talking about The Ringer, which is Bill Simmons's website. I mean, yeah. Who's the critic for them? I forget the guy's name who's the critic for them. I've run into him a few times at separate screenings when I lived in LA, but yeah, no. I mean, come on. We've been doing the show for 7 years now, I think. So, who's ripping off anything? I do feel like I have last one. Hanks by a Mile, Toy Story, Castaway, Ryan. Saving Private Ryan and Green Mile. Yeah. It's personal choice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so there you go. All right, I think that's everything, Shannon. I know you got to go. I got to go. We got to get out of here. I got to get some dinner. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us on this live happy hour of the Geek Buddies, just like we had one with Michael last week. Really appreciate Shannon hanging out with us for an hour and a half and having some fun talking about stories and life and all the geek stuff that's going on in the world of entertainment. Shannon, what do we have to tell these wonderful folks?
Yes, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at @geek_buddies, on Instagram at @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, maybe I'll put some more pictures up from Alaska. On Twitter, it's at @Shannon_McClung, on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you'd like to follow Mr. Vogel and see his European adventure, it is at MKToon. If you would like to follow Mr. Rocha and see that handsome face in San Diego, it is at The Rocha Says.
Thank you. Thank you, Shannon. Very kind of you. And please don't forget, we are a podcast as well. I would love for the thousands of you who watch the show to subscribe to the podcast as well, so we can get those numbers higher and higher and get more and more sponsors and clients who sponsor the show and support us here. And we could do more ads and make a little bit of money. Would be nice if you guys could support us in that way, because I know a lot of you can't afford to send in Streamlabs Superchats, which we totally understand. But the way you can help us to get some financial benefits from doing the show is by subscribing to the podcast and downloading those episodes and listen. You don't even have to listen to them; just download them, and it shows that we've got those subscribers. So, would appreciate if you guys did that. And Paul Hitchcock clarifies that they do a Cruise versus Hanks thing recast. I don't even know what that is, but it was inspired by a question, so we're not trying to copy The Ringer. And yes, I was thinking of Sean Fantasy. All right. Thank you guys so much. Take care of yourselves. Be well. Don't forget the Hot Mic is live tomorrow at 9 a.m., not 4 p.m. PT, 9 a.m. PT, because Jeff is on the East Coast. And we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode here of the
Geek Buddies.